The red horse rider is one of the end times most feared end time figures, with good reason. He takes peace from the earth. Now, there have been a lot of people suggested over the years as being the red horse rider. Back in 1800s, they thought it was Napoleon. 1900s, they thought it was Hitler. Today, figures like the Ayatollah and Trump come to mind. But I think the Bible is pretty clear about who it might be, maybe even like 99% clear as to who it is, and even might call him by name in certain scriptures. And isn't that interesting? This is Bible teacher Nelson Walters. So today we're going to explore that question. And if you'd like to know with possibly 99% certainty who the red horse rider is, well, keep watching. Because unless the rapture is pre-trib, just about everybody alive today is going to live to see the red horse rider and see him take peace from the earth. Now you're probably thinking, Nelson, that's not really a very pleasant thought. I'm not really looking forward to thinking about the horse of war and bloodshed taking peace from the earth. How do you prepare for something like that? Well, when God was preparing Joshua and the Israelites to enter the promised land and fight a war with Jericho and the other cities there, he had this piece of advice for Joshua. He said, be strong and courageous. To which you're probably thinking, Nelson, these kind of things don't make me feel strong and courageous. And I'm sure that's true. That's even true for me and probably 99% of people watching this video. None of us feel strong and courageous about entering the end times. So how do you do it? Well, the answer is that God didn't say feel strong and courageous. He said be strong and courageous. There's a huge difference. One is emotional, and it's normal to have an emotion where you don't feel strong or courageous. Jesus, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asked God that the cup be taken from him. He wasn't feeling very strong or courageous either, and he was the Son of God. But God doesn't ask us to feel that way. He asks us to be that way. That when the time comes for you to act strong and courageous, you will. And there's only one way to do that, and that's through faith. If we have faith that God is ordaining these things, permitting these things, then we can act strong and courageous. Don't forget, in Matthew 24:7, Jesus said, these are the things that must take place. In fact, when Jesus explained the second seal or the red horseman to his disciples, he put it this way. Let me read it for you. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, see that you're not frightened, for these things must take place. He realizes we will feel frightened, or he wouldn't have put it this way. But he says, don't be frightened. He knows we'll feel it, but he doesn't want us to be frightened at the moment these things happen. We may feel totally out of control, but he is totally in control. Okay, now that we understand that very essential piece, let's start looking at the red horseman. And let's start explaining who this guy is, because, as we said, we think the Bible mentions him by name. Now, you probably have your favorite bad guy out there in the world today, whether that's the Ayatollah, whether it's Trump, whether it's Macron from France, whoever it is, the Pope. I'm sure you have your own favorite bad guy. But I want you to lay all that aside. Lay aside your theories of who it might be, and let's see what the Bible has to say about that. And let me read this to you from the book of Revelation. It's Revelation 6:4. Then another horse went forth. It was bright red, and its rider was granted permission to take peace from the earth and to make men slay one another. And he was given a great sword. How many clues did you see there? I saw 5 clues. He rides a horse. The horse is red. He takes peace from the earth. In fact, he is granted permission to do that. He causes men to slay one another, and he's given a great sword. That's 5 clues. And if we look at Matthew 24, verses 6 and 7, we learn a couple of extra clues. Let's read that passage. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. This passage is part of a second seal. It's the same events. And to this, we added then 2 extra things. Nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. You say, hey, Nelson, those are the same thing. Nations, kingdoms, same thing. Well, the word nation is the word ethnos, which actually means people group. So in our English Bibles, we don't get the best translation that we could get of that. Jesus is saying people groups will rise against people groups. Black against white, rich against poor, Muslim against Christian, Muslim against Jew, that type of thing. That type of civil war within our nations. And then, of course, at the same time, kingdoms are rising against kingdoms, which are alliances of nations coming against each other, like the BRICS alliance of Russia and China and Iran coming against the United States and NATO, that sort of thing. All of that taking place at the same time. So the red horse is both ethnic violence and international violence happening simultaneously. That's something you're not going to miss. You'll know it when you see it. And the killing that occurs during the red horse isn't just a normal type of killing. We don't get this from our English either. The Greek word is sapzo, and it means a ritual type of killing, the type of butchering or slaying that happens when you sacrifice an animal, like the Jews used to do on the Temple Mount. This implies a type of killing that has maybe a religious bent to it. One religion killing another religion. It kind of narrows down the ethnic type of aspect of this red horseman, that maybe it has a religious bend to it. Think of a war where this happened recently, where one religion attacked another religion for religious purposes. I think of October 7th immediately, where Hamas attacked Israel. And the killing that they did, they thought, was to honor their own God, Allah, against the God of Israel, Yahweh. And the next clue about the great sword is just like it and reinforces this idea that it's a religious war that takes place. You say, hey, Nelson, great sword, that has to be the greatest weapon that's ever been. Maybe it's nuclear weapons, maybe it's some AI-enhanced weapon that pulses and kills people. It's a great sword. Well, the word sword is makaria in the Greek. Again, our English betrays us and doesn't give us the full picture. A makaria is a short dagger-like sword, not some great big sword. And that dagger-like sword was used in animal sacrifices. So there's a sacrificial element to this killing. In fact, at the 5th seal, where the martyrs are under the altar of God up in heaven after having been martyred, they cry out because they've been killed by this same type of sword, a makaria. Yeah, Nelson, but what you don't understand is it's a great sword. Yes, I know. And that word in the Greek can mean large, but it can also mean widespread, just like the Great Tribulation. If you think about the men in orange jumpsuits who were killed on the beach in Egypt, they weren't enduring anything that was worse than what will happen in the Great Tribulation. It's just that during the Great Tribulation, that type of thing will be widespread. So perhaps the great sword is a widespread sword, as opposed to being some giant sword, some great new weapon. Could be a great new weapon, but it doesn't have to be. And the next clue reinforces that idea again, that peace is taken from the earth. Think about that. When has the earth ever been at peace? I know that they've done a study, and the number of years that the world has actually been at peace is something like 200 in the last 4,000 years. So that's just something that doesn't happen very often. So before the red horseman can take peace from the earth, peace has to be established first. This is one of the main reasons why the white horseman is the horse of false peace. He has to establish it, and only then can the red horseman take it away. These are very, very big and important concepts in the end times that just get overlooked. And finally, the horse is red. You were probably saying, Nelson, why didn't you get to that at first? That's what I was waiting for. In the ancient world, the gods of war were always this color. Think about Mars and the Greek god of war, and how he was red and associated with the planet Mars. You may not know this, but in Babylon, Nergal was the god of war, and he was also associated with this planet and with the color red. But in the Bible, red, especially fiery red, or puros in the Greek, is associated with two characters. The first you probably know, the dragon, the fiery red dragon, who is Satan. We see him in Revelation 12. That makes sense. The other one you probably haven't thought about, but his name actually means red, and that is Esau, the man who was Jacob's brother and sold and gave away his birthright for a bowl of lentil soup that was this color, fiery red, and his people that are descended from him are called Edom, and they are also fiery red. Now, here's the real kicker. Islam is anticipating someone with that exact name, Esau, to come on the scene and spread extreme violence. He is someone you may have heard of. You probably know him as the Muslim Jesus, because he's going to come on the world, and his stated purpose is to break the cross, either convert all Christians to Islam or kill them. A man of extreme violence, which is perfect for red. And the usage of his name is very strange. As we said, he's the Muslim Jesus. He's actually going to claim to be the historic Jesus come back from heaven. See, they expect Jesus to come back just like we do, but they don't call him Jesus or Yeshua. They call him Esau, like the Old Testament character. They don't believe he's divine, the Son of God. They don't believe he died on the cross. They don't believe he provided salvation through his blood. So that's a real problem. He isn't the same Jesus. No, he is Esau. And so you say, Nelson, why would they think his name is Esau, where it's very clear that the name of Jesus is Yeshua in the Bible? Well, there are a couple reasons why Muhammad may have called him Esau. One is prophetically because he is the return of the spirit of that individual, Esau, not the return of the legitimate Son of God, Yeshua. Yeshua, after all, means that Yahweh is our salvation. They believe in another God. His name is Allah. So they don't want to give Yahweh any credit. Esau has other ideas inherent in that name that you may not have thought of. What is Esau and Jacob most known for? Well, most known for despising his birthright. What was that birthright? The nation of Israel. That's right, he gave it up. That's why Israel was given the Abrahamic promise. That's why Israel is the apple of God's eye. But Esau despised his birthright. He also lost his blessing. You probably know the story where Jacob deceived his father Isaac by putting on Esau's clothing and putting goat skin on his arms so he would smell like Esau and so he would be hairy like Esau. And he deceived his father into believing he was Esau and got the blessing. So what happens in the end times? Well, Esau is going to deceive us into believing he is Jesus. So it's a deception both ways. So as we see, Esau has an amazing connection to the color red. In fact, he is the human being who has the greatest connection to red in the entire Bible. Red horseman, red person. And he's going to be a person of extreme violence. Will he incite Muslims to rise up against Christians and against the Jews in a worldwide jihad that takes place individually on the city streets of your city and of other cities in the world? He has the cred to do this with Muslims. They believe he is Jesus returned. The prophet Jesus, they don't believe he's the Son of God, but they believe he is pretty equivalent to Muhammad. They're going to listen to what he says. So if he says, rise up, strike the necks of Jews and Christians, that's what's going to happen. That, my friends, would be the red horseman. He also could incite nations that are Islamic in nature to rise up also, kingdom against kingdom. You can see this happening if you just think about it. And Jesus prophesied that something like this would happen. Listen to what he said in John 16:2. I bet you know this verse, and when you hear it, you'll say, now I get it. A time is coming when anyone who kills you will think he's offering service to God. So Esau is a person who could uniquely fill the role of the red horse rider, inciting nations and inciting individuals into violence. Esau is the personification of the age-old struggle between Arabs and Jews. Esau and Jacob were twins. Rebekah, their mother, conceived, but the children struggled within her very womb. And she said, if it is so, why then am I this way? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 twins are in your womb, and 2 peoples will be separated from your body. And one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older, that's Esau, shall serve the younger, that's Jacob. This is the account of 2 nations. Jacob, who God changed his name to Israel, and Edom, which is Esau's nation. Remember, Edom also means red. So it has been a 4,000-year-old struggle between these 2 groups, all for the promised land and the birthright. So Nelson, why do you tell me that Edom is Muslim? The reason is that Esau got married. He married the daughter of Ishmael. And if I told you that Ishmael is the ancestor of Islam, you would say, oh yeah, he was the progenitor of all the Arab peoples. Well, guess what? Esau married into that line. So Edom and Ishmael are essentially 2 parts of the same piece of the puzzle, the Islamic piece of the puzzle. Edom has a particularly violent history in the past and will continue to do so, and continue to try to eliminate Jacob, and that is on no less of an account than what God tells us himself. Because of the violence against your brother Jacob, you will be covered with shame and be cut off, basically eliminated forever. Obadiah 1:10. In fact, the list of judgments that happen against Edom are greater than any other nation in the Bible. Let's look at something else. What does Jesus say about the one who comes before the wars and disturbances? Let's read that. Many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and the time is near. Luke 21:8. Esau will make both of these predictions come true. He's going to say, he is the historic Jesus. I am he will say. And it's judgment day now when he lands. That's what he's going to say also. It's time to strike against Christians. It's time to strike against the Jews. The time is near. He's going to fulfill that verse out of Luke 21. What else we learn about Esau and the end times from the heretical Muslim scriptures is very interesting. Esau will descend to join and worship the other Islamic redeemer, the Mahdi. He will be subservient to the Mahdi, though, and cause all to worship him, the Mahdi, not Jesus. This Esau is said to descend near Damascus, dressed in yellow robes. And as we said, he's going to try to break the cross or eliminate Christianity. And every Christian who doesn't convert to Islam, he is going to try to kill. So what does that sound like? Who is that in the Bible, other than the red horseman, who does this? It's a very famous figure. In the book of Revelation, we call that figure the false prophet. When he comes on the scene, he's going to do miracles. Miracles that will make people believe that the Mahdi truly is God himself. Mahdi probably being the Antichrist. Then he's going to cause all people to worship the Mahdi. And he's going to be the one who has an image of the beast made. And everyone who doesn't worship the image of the beast is to be killed. What does that sound like? It sounds like the breaking of the cross, doesn't it? It sounds something like what Esau might do. So you might say, Nelson, you're talking about heretical Muslim scriptures. You're not talking about the Bible here. Well, I beg to differ. We are talking about the Bible. But there is an element of what we talked about today that is part of the Muslim scriptures, the heretical Muslim scriptures. But that doesn't mean that Satan didn't help have those written for just such a time as what is coming up in the end times, so that there will be 1.5 billion people, which is what Islam represents, completely deceived into believing in this guy as opposed to the real Jesus, who is the Son of God. Can you see how that would be? So although they're heretical, it doesn't mean there isn't an element in them that we need to take a very careful look at. So if Satan does rise up a man who calls himself Esau and whom Satan has possessed by one of his demonic forces and acts out all these things, we should expect that that person has a very strong chance of being the red horseman. So that's the second seal, the red horse. What about the next one? The black horse, the third seal, the seal of economic distress and famine. We'll click right here. And we will explore the question of whether there are 7 years of plenty before the 7 years of famine. Just like in Joseph's famines back in the days of Egypt. Till then, this is Nelson, and I will see you there.